Today's topic is an action plan.
Yes.
Mate, season 2. We've already done 25 episodes.
Mate, 26 today.
26?
Action plan at the end to follow. So if you are watching this and you want to get straight to the action plan itself, welcome to Jump.
Just make sure you are doing good form. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be full range of motion, stiff.
If you really do struggle, you can take supplementation to help you get more vitamins in. And I do recommend doing that first, whilst you're changing your diet, because at least you're getting those nutrients in whilst you're changing.
Hit it. You've already let your expectations go, and as soon as expectations slip, I think a lot of people have been in a negative spiral when it comes to the dietary world and making.
Welcome to You Know What, the podcast for you that dispels the myths and BS in the fitness industry whilst leveling up your A game in everyday life. We are your hosts, Nick Finch and Dan King.
Guys, welcome back to season 2 of You Know What podcast. We are here once again to change your life. Okay, so Dan, how are we doing, mate? How was New Year's?
Mate, season 2. We've already done 25 episodes.
Mate, 26 today.
26?
Yeah.
Mad, and we used to sit on your sofa recording these episodes thinking we were Billy Big Bollocks.
Mate, I look back on those days thinking how professional it was. Mm-hmm. Sitting on my sofa thinking I set it up the right way, the lighting was banging, and yeah. Looking back, it's terrible.
Yeah. But we're here now.
Yeah. We are here now. And today's topic is an action plan, isn't it? This is an action plan for you for 2024 to make sure you get the most you can out of your body in terms of body transformation.
Because there's no point going into 2024 without a plan. I think a lot of the time people wing it in January. The amount of people you talk to and be like, do you know what your goals are? And they turn around and go, I want to lose weight. I'm like, yeah, but how much weight do you want to lose? When do you want to lose this weight by? What's the reasoning why you want to lose weight? And actually, that brings us into a little bit of an interesting topic area. What's the random fact you got for us today, Nick?
Well, before we jump into the action plan, okay, this is a very practical podcast, by the way. You're going to learn a lot today. Before that, we have a random fact. And that random fact is calories burned during sex. Do you know how many calories you actually burn during sex?
I personally don't know.
Well, you do, because you've read my notes on this. But most people, I didn't know this. I thought you burn 200 to 300 calories in a session. That's what you were told. However, you actually only burn about 21 calories during sex.
But that's because it's so short, I guess. Like the average person lasts under 30 seconds.
Unfortunately so. So they reckon that men will burn about 4.2 calories per minute, and a woman will burn about 3 calories per minute because of the larger size of a man. Okay, and they're the ones most of the time working the hardest, I guess.
Well, I don't know. 50-50 splits these days. It depends
on the girl.
Depends on preference.
Yeah, it
depends on preference.
It depends how you identify yourself. But obviously, if you're burning 4 calories per minute and you're only going for 6 minutes, which is the average that they found is the average of a session, then
question though,
21 calories.
6 minutes, does that include foreplay?
Don't know.
Or is that just 6 minutes in general?
It says in the study, it says that it's vigorous. A vigorous 6 minutes.
Vigorous 6 minutes. I'll remember that next time.
That's the average.
I'll remember that the next time. I'll be like, love, it's a vigorous 6 minutes, not just a slow paced zone 3 6 minutes. We're going for this.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. Oh, God.
Shall we dive in?
I think we should dive in.
So today, guys, we're going to go through a little action plan. There are a few parts to this, and then we're going to give you a little action plan at the end to follow. So if you are watching this and you want to get straight to the action plan itself, welcome to jump to the end.
Yeah, okay. Just straight into it.
So part 1 is goal setting goals and setting expectations. Now, you can't go anywhere without a goal and a direction in terms of where you're trying to aim for, basically. So when it comes to setting goals, what is your goal?
Well, I think you have to kind of align yourself with actually where you want to be in a year's time. If we're saying it's for 2024, where would you like to be this time next year? Like, what do you want to be able to turn around and say, in those 12 months, I managed to achieve this? And actually, a really good way to do it is exactly doing that. Write it down on a piece of paper and say, just be blunt, no matter how selfish that goal is, put the goal on a piece of paper and just say where you want to be. And then where we're going to go from there is you're going to start to work backwards from that to actually plan out how you're going to do it. The next key point we were going to speak about was setting expectations as well, which kind of comes into that.
Yeah.
Like you're setting an expectation.
And the reason why we talk about set expectations is because a lot of people think that they can transform their body ridiculously quick. Like 6 weeks later, they're going to have a 6-pack, they're going to be huge. That's not the way it works, unfortunately, unless you're taking gear. So we just need to set ourselves an expectation of what is realistic over the course of that year in terms of what you can actually achieve. Now, for setting expectations, for losing fat, we say 1 pound of fat a week is a pretty good rate of fat loss. Yeah. A lot of people have been told you can lose 2 to 3 pounds per week, okay? But we don't want to make the first week every week, because the first week you're going to drop quite quick. You know, as you know, you lose water weight, you're going to lose a lot of weight in the first week, and you're going to think that you can continue that for the entire year. You can't. So we're looking at 1 pound of fat loss per week is a reasonable rate. Now 0.5 even better, more sustainable. If you do any faster than that, maybe 2 pounds of fat per week, it becomes a little bit more difficult, and you might not be able to stick to it in the long term. And that is the most important factor.
Well, it's adherence, isn't it? The adherence factor is huge in terms of making sure you stick to it. I was speaking to a client today about how she's using the intermittent fasting. And you know what? I'm not going to sit here and slag off intermittent fasting. If it works for you, it works for you at the end of the day. But you have to bear in mind that whatever strategy you're going to go for, which is one of the strategies we're going to give you here, is you have to be able to adhere to that over a time frame. Yeah. You can't be going in with it and then starting to yo-yo immediately. As soon as you start to yo-yo, your yo-yo is going to split or going to break at some point in time.
That's a lot of yo-yos, man.
There's a lot of yo-yos. You be yo-yoing.
So, once again, setting expectations. You all want to gain tone, muscle tone, so that means you need to build some kind of muscle tissue. You also need to lose fat, right? So let's say you want to lose 1 pound of fat per week, and you want to gain 0.5 pounds of muscle per week. Okay, now that's obviously going to be quite difficult to do both of those at the same time. So do you cut or do you bulk is dependent on where you are in terms of your body shape right now. However, we recommend regardless that you focus not so much on what you're trying to obtain, but the actual process to do that. Meaning, are you strength training? Are you eating the right macros? Are you controlling your diet, etc.? They will make the largest difference in terms of how you look, not giving yourself a rudimentary number to follow.
No, because as soon as you set yourself that number and you don't hit it, you've already let your expectations go. And as soon as expectations slip, I think a lot of people have been in a negative spiral when it comes to the dietary world and making progress. The next bit is what we're going to talk about, action planning. We've done the goal setting part, so you know where your goal is going to be. Just write it down on a piece of paper and basically say, this is the goal I want to achieve by the end of 2024. By the time it comes around to January 1st, 2025, I want to be here. That's what I want to be. And again, you can start to use a little bit of law of attraction. You write it down, it's most likely going to come true. Just saying.
And be audacious, be bold. Yeah. Obviously, we said about realistic standards, but be bold, because it's always good to shoot for the stars, isn't it? But you land on the moon. Yeah. That's the saying, isn't it?
I mean, I had a photo, I probably said this in another podcast. On my vision board last year, I had a photo of Zac Efron. Zac Efron from Baywatch.
Which one?
Everyone knows that photo.
Before his face went all...
Yeah, before he started getting facial reconstruction. But yeah, I had a photo of Zac Efron. I'll tell you what, physique-wise, I'm not Zac Efron's physique, granted, but I got in probably one of the best, I'm still in the best shape that I've ever been in, and that's all that picture depicted. So be bold, look like Zac Efron, you'll be golden, or Michelle Keegan, whatever you fancy. But how are we going to get there? So we've set our goals. But what are we doing next?
So the main thing is, this is part 2, right? The main thing is the strength training. Now, nutrition is very important, but before we get into that, we need to have some kind of strength training plan. Okay, you can't build muscle unless you're breaking down the muscle in the first place and giving your body a stimulus to actually need a change. So, strength training. How many times a week should you strength train?
Well, frequency is going to depend on your week, but we say 3 to 5. If you are starting to train every single day of the week, you have to bear in mind your intensity will need to be tapered back in the sessions. So I've known people to train 6 days a week, but the intensity is not that high of someone who, say, trains 3 days a week. Yeah. If that makes sense?
Yeah.
So per session, the intensity will be lower, because the higher your intensity is over a consistent time frame, the increased injury risk that you will have. Yeah. So you have to bear that in mind. So we say 3 to 5. 3 to 5 is a nice number.
3 to 5 is perfect. And if you ever see someone saying you can train 6 to 7 days a week, twice a day, all that stuff, that's normally because they're on gear, and gear is completely different how it works in the body. You can recover very quickly. Whereas if you're natural, which most of you will be, you can't recover quickly, so you need to be more smart with your training. 3 times a week is fine.
Yeah.
Okay, I think 3 times a week is actually phenomenal if you focus on intensity, which is our next point.
Yeah, I was going to say intensity, and with the intensity comes the form. Now, a lot of people who watch this podcast, we had some requests from our coaching lab group saying about they would like some form videos, and I think people out there still struggle with form to this day. I'm sure there's exercises we do where we don't feel like we're executing at 100%. Yeah. Just make sure you are doing good form. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be full range of motion, stiff leg deadlifts to the floor, or, I don't know, squats, arse to grass. It doesn't need to be that. It needs to be good form that you can sit there and say, okay, I felt the muscles moving, I've thought about the movement, and I feel good doing it. That's it. That's all you need to think about. perfect form takes years to master. To master a skill, they always say it's 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
If you want a perfect squat, it's going to take you a while.
And obviously with form as well, with that in case, make sure you start off with a lightweight. Don't just go straight into heavyweight because you see the big guy in the gym lifting it. Right? Even if you can lift it, who cares? Just focus on lightweight, get the full form like mastered before you start adding weight, because you're going to struggle otherwise, and you can injure yourself. We don't want that.
No, okay. Injuries suck. But where do we go after form? What's the next thing? You start to load on a little bit of weight, we start getting stronger, we start seeing visible gains. But what happens when we hit that plateau? Where do we then move from there?
So progressive overload is super important. You're never going to gain muscle if you don't put a stimulus on it to grow. And the way you do that is by adding weight and intensity to the muscle over time. So assuming that your form is good enough, assuming that obviously you know what you're doing and you're getting to the 12 reps or whatever rep count you're after, then the next point is to increase the weight or intensity by slowing down the movement. Okay, so progressive overload it's not just the weight. Obviously, there's a few elements to it, but we want to be increasing the amount that we're lifting or the amount of tension on the muscle over time.
100%. I mean, a good way to do that as well. Like a lot of the time, people think you need to load up a bar heavy. You don't. What Nick just said there about slowing down the movement, think about the movement where you're feeling the muscles stretching. So say, example, if you're doing a squat, slow down the phase when you're dropping your bum to the floor. Just slow down that phase a little bit. Do 3 seconds. 3 seconds for me as time under tension, perfect.
Yeah.
Any exercise you do, this is one of my kind of big gold standards, time under tension, increase your intensity. A 3 second eccentric, so dropping through the movement. A 1 second pause at the bottom to hold the muscles in a stretch position, and then you can explode out the bottom as quick as you can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then one little caveat to that could be, obviously I don't want to confuse it too much, but this is where obviously there's certain specifics of training. But some exercises for bicep curl, for example, you would actually come up and you would pause in the tense position. And that way you'd get the maximum tension in the muscle, whereas something where you're in a deficit going into a squat, then obviously it's different. Mm-hmm. So some exercises you might find better to tense and hold that 1 second, either at the top of the movement or the bottom of the movement. But that comes with time and practice, or we can tell you ourselves if you sign up to our program. Then lastly, we have tracking. You need some form of tracking because you need to know if you're moving forwards. You need to know if you're moving backwards. Okay, you need to know whether you've had a bad day or a good day. So you need to track track your training, and you can do this through an app. You can do this through simply writing on your notes. Have you ever written your notes before?
I have. Years ago when I started at Pure Gym, I had my little phone and I had my gym workouts, and I'd write down like my PRs in there. So you can do it that way. Look, it's a starting point for a lot of people. I would highly advise accountability apps though. It makes your life a lot easier, and you've got to bear in mind, if you add these barriers in the way, like writing sets in to your phone in the gym, you're less likely to stick to them because they become more difficult the more you do them. You're just adding another barrier in the way that you may not want to do. Logbooks, I think people love logbooks still to this day.
They do, and I can see why,
100%.
because writing on paper, you kind of remember it more.
Yeah.
There has been science that's shown that it kind of integrates into your head better. Mm-hmm. Personally, I track in my head, but I know what I'm doing. When I'm more serious with training, I'll go into the app and I'll start tracking in terms of every single set, every single rep, and it will even tell me how much pounds I've lifted, what my PB has been, all my previous weights, and that's the app that we have for our clients. So you're welcome to learn more about that.
Apologies for interrupting the podcast today. Thank you so much for tuning in to You Know What. We really appreciate you listening, subscribing, liking and reviewing everything that we're doing. It's so nice to see so many of you interacting with our podcast as it grows. If you didn't already know, me and Nick have one of the fastest growing online coaching platforms on the planet, and we'd love to get you involved. We're looking for ambitious people looking to grow their careers and grow their experience in health and fitness. Me and Nick have over 10 years of working experience in the fitness industry, and we'd love to help you achieve the results that you've always wanted. Make sure to contact either Coach Dan King or Get Fit by Nick, or even just check the link in our bio to the podcast now. We'd love to hear from you. But I mean, we've spoken about training there. We've spoken about strength training being one of the big pillars that's going to get you where you need to be in 2024 and get you to the result you want. Now, alongside your training, where everyone talks about this, diet and nutrition, making sure things are on point for what you need to do. So we spoke about tracking there, and this brings us very quickly into tracking your food intake. Me and Nick are very strong believers in the tracking world. Okay, not everyone this works for. I'm going to be totally honest. Tracking doesn't work for everyone, but it gives you a clear indication of where you are with food. Yeah. One of my big mantras is with clients who don't enjoy tracking, I say, can you please just track for 2 weeks? Because if you're being PT'd or coached by someone, they need to know what your food looks like for 2 weeks. And they can learn your eating habits to better design a program that's going to help you get results quicker. So I'm a big believer in tracking over time. I do enjoy doing it myself, but I've had a couple of weeks break now, which is fine. But you need to start by knowing, and it'll educate you above anything else. It's going to educate you on how many calories in the food you're eating.
And if any of you have ever had any eating disorders in the past and you're worried that tracking is going to lead to an eating disorder, once again, like, you don't have to track forever. We just recommend tracking for a short period of time. A week to 2 weeks is enough for us to get data and for you to get data to know what you're actually eating. After that point, then we can make decisions based on like not tracking your food intake, but still managing to hit what you need to hit.
Yeah,
that's it. Okay, it's just like it's like saving for a holiday, isn't it? If you don't look at your budget, you don't look at how much money is coming in versus coming out, then you're never going to save for your holiday. So you need to look at the numbers. Sometimes it's the best thing you can do.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. It's just identifying what your budget is.
Exactly. Now the second point, obviously, calories, calorie deficit for losing fat, calorie surplus to gaining muscle. Most of you are going to want to lose a little bit of fat and gain muscle tone. So we're probably going to be in a calorie deficit position. Okay. If you had a fat dog, right, you're going to basically feed it less and you're going to move it more. Everyone laughs when I say this. You're going to feed it less and you're going to move it more. Okay. So first part is you've got to feed it less, which means you've got to feed yourself less. However, your dog doesn't have opposable thumbs and a credit card, but you do. So it's very important that you control those emotions, all right, by following your calorie deficit to the T.
What I'd say as well for numbers, if you're thinking what numbers should I hit if I want to be in a calorie deficit or calorie surplus, mine is if you want to be in a deep deficit, 500 under maintenance, you can go to caloriecalculator.net or come to me and Nick and we can calculate it ourselves. So 500 calories if you want to be in a deep deficit, but you have to bear in mind, do not increase those calories rapidly because you will just gain the weight back on again. 250 is the most sensible and sustainable number to be in. And then if you're in a surplus, the same thing again, 250 to 500, depending how aggressive you want to put on the weight. But bear in mind, the more aggressive the surplus, the quicker you gain body fat. The more aggressive the deficit, the quicker you lose weight, but the quicker you'll put it back on if you don't regulate things correctly.
And the good thing about that as well, with a 500 calorie deficit a day, that's 3,500 calories a week. And that equals 1 pound of body fat. So if your goal is to lose a pound of body fat, which is a very reasonable amount, which means you're losing 104 pounds of fat a year, which is loads when you think about it, okay? That's wrong. 52 pounds of fat in a year. My maths is...
I love how I sat there nodding and went, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
I was thinking about 2 pounds for some reason. Anyway, yeah. So 500 calorie deficit a day will lead to a pound of fat loss a week, which is 52 pounds a year, which is a lot. So if you haven't got that much to lose, then you could get the result in 3 to 6 months, depending on where you're at. Macros. Now we've got protein, carbs and fats. Now we're not going to talk about carbs and fats too much because they're just the energy macros. They will help you. You can basically have a mix of carbs and fats to your liking. But the one we're going to talk about is protein. Protein is the most important for building muscle tissue. It's the most important for satiating yourself, and it's very important for raising your metabolism and helping burning a few extra calories as well. Okay. Now this man here likes 50 grams of protein. I'm sure you've heard him before.
Hell yeah.
So how important is it to get protein? Yeah?
Oh, protein is so important, mate. Like at the end of the day, protein is one of the big pillars. If you're going to have two things that you focus on solely, and this is not neglecting anything else, but if you want someone to focus on your calories and your protein intake. Now, protein, I like to believe there's a point of limiting returns with protein where you don't see as much of a benefit. You'll still see a benefit. You can have however many you want, but 1.5 times your body weight in kilos. That's the number I like to work with. I find that works, but for people on weight loss journeys, you may find that your protein content is going to be slightly higher because protein is very satiating. And thermic effective food, protein uses the most calories to break itself down. So thereby, it means you feel fuller for longer, you burn more calories at rest, you burn more calories over time, you're in a bigger deficit, and you lose weight quicker.
Yeah, so make sure you do not neglect your protein. I can tell you, like straight away, if your protein's too low, you will not build muscle as quick, and you will feel worse, and you won't understand why. Yeah. Okay, and we don't want that to happen.
Well, proteins are building blocks of your body at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like we are built up of amino acids, which is the kind of foundational form of protein. So bear in mind, we need those to function on a day-to-day basis. We need them for protein synthesis, and we need them for synthesizing new cells in the body. So you need to have them, and that's why I love protein so much.
And that's also a good thing about a good tracking app like MyFitnessPal or the Coaching Lab app, is that you can actually see your protein breakdown. So you can see if you're hitting enough or not.
Yeah, and it'll give you a nice little gold bar.
Yeah. Now, micronutrients. There's it's quite a huge topic, to be honest with you. There's a lot of vitamins and minerals out there. However, we do suggest that you get in your fruits and veg every single day. There's many reasons for this: skin health, eye health, hair, etc. Your energy levels, how you feel generally, your moods. Everything is kind of built off this foundation of micronutrients. So we recommend at least 3 to 5 servings of fruit and veg a day, like the NHS does. It's a very good topic, very good goal to go after. If you really do struggle, you can take supplementation to help you get more vitamins in. And I do recommend doing that first whilst you're changing your diet, because at least you're getting those nutrients in whilst you're changing your diet, rather than the other way around. Okay.
I completely agree with you there. You use a multivitamin to fill the holes that you don't even know exist.
Yeah.
The only way you're ever going to know what you're deficient in is if you do blood tests.
Yeah.
And that's if you go into the NHS and do blood tests with them. Take a little while, but that is the only way you're ever going to know what you're deficient in. For the time being, as Nick said, supplement your vitamins, supplement stuff like cod liver oil and stuff like that, just to get the extra good fats in there.
And yes, we do understand supplementation isn't the same thing as eating the real foods.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are bioavailability issues. You might not be able to absorb all of it. That's fine. We understand that. And, the goal should be initially just to get that in whilst you're making the changes, in the long term. So don't panic too much about changing everything at once. Take the multivitamin, make one little change, and then make a new change every single 4 weeks. And that's all you need to do. Over the course of the year, you'll come off the supplements, you're going to be completely fine, you're going to feel great, and you're going to lose fat and be toned up. So,
Truth.
And then lastly,
straight in there, so hydration. I mean, if anyone's ever seen me, give me 1 second. So,
what's what?
Gold standard. One of them. So that is a 2 litre bottle. That is what we are recommended to drink per day, whether you're male or female. That bottle, one of those a day. I actually highly rate these bottles. I know they get taken the piss out of, but having one of these a day, I don't have to go and fill it up all the time. I know as soon as I hit the bottom, I've hit my hydration goal for the day. But staying hydrated is key. If you want fat loss, you need to be hydrated. If you want muscle gain, you need to be hydrated. If you want to sleep well, you need to be hydrated. Just drink your water. Don't stare at your glass of water and be like, oh, I'm a bit thirsty. But then you don't drink it. Drink your goddamn water.
Yeah, and some tips to get it in. Obviously, you can get a big bottle like that. You can wake up in the morning and have a glass of water in the morning, a glass of water at night, and then obviously have a 1 litre bottle in the day. It doesn't have to be one big go or, one big bottle potentially. You can just take it in as, whenever you need. Just make sure you get it in. Okay, and coffee and tea does count towards that. However, we recommend trying to get large amount from normal water.
Yeah, it's easier to track if you've just got water. If we're having things like Coke Zero, coffee, tea, it's difficult to say. Like, I don't know how much water was in this coffee cup. I can probably take a guess. It's about 250 millilitres, but I don't know. I don't know. So it's just easier having it in stuff like bottles. Or there's the fancy ones now, which give you like little motivational mantras.
Oh, yeah, you mean like every hour you've got to drink it, and it gives you like you're filling up, your life is getting better, grateful. Oh yeah,
stuff.
I know,
stuff like that.
And then part 4 is lifestyle. This is really kind of the foundation. However, honestly, this part can be the hardest part for a lot of us. So we always find that when someone's motivated to train and change their body, they think about the training first. Mm-hmm. That's what they say. That's why we talked about it first, because you're going to be most motivated about doing that, and that will get you in the movement of action. And when you're doing action a lot more, you're going to find it easier to change your diet and easier to do other stuff too, which is the lifestyle. So one part of lifestyle we think is very important is getting your daily activity in through steps or gardening or household chores or anything that involves moving. So 5,000 to 10,000 steps a day is what we've heard, and the reason for that is it increases NEAT, which also burns more calories, also helps you feel better and live longer potentially. Who knows?
I mean, I thought about this the other day. If you think about your grandparents and say you've got like really active grandparents who are living to an old age, look at what they were doing throughout their, like, even from the 50s onwards, that they were being active. They were going out for walks every day. The only reason that people struggle these days is because we've got Netflix. We have a sedentary society that sits on their ass and does fuck all. So just get up, have a walk, go and enjoy yourself. Just, if there's an opportunity for you to move for God's sake. You're going to feel better than sat there like this on the sofa.
Exactly. Nothing else to say about that, guys. Get moving, stop being lazy.
And actually, moving on to the next point, stretching. Yep. So stretching is a fundamental thing. Jamie Alderton said about this on one of his most recent podcast episodes. He turned around and said, I wish from the age of 20 I'd started stretching, because now he's going into his 50s, he's starting to feel the effect, actually 40s, he's starting to feel the effects of not stretching in his 20s. You need to mobilize the joints, you need to mobilize the ligaments, you need to mobilize the tendons. All you need is a 10-minute stretching routine in the morning. Jobs are good in. Do it first thing in the morning because you make less excuses.
And also reduces chance of injury, okay? Stretching is so important for posture, for injury prevention, and also feeling good. no one likes feeling achy in the morning and can't move.
No, you don't like to feel stiff. You don't like to wake up and feel like your hips, like you're 20 and you got hips of a 60-year-old.
Especially when you're trying to increase your calories through sexual bonding.
See, you got that mobility around the hips, baby.
Next one, sleep quality. So making sure that you sleep consistently between 7 to 9 hours per night. And when I say consistently, it means you're not like this all the time. You've actually got like a solid sleep routine because it's going to make you feel 10 times better. You build all your muscle when you're sleeping. You burn fat when you're sleeping. You basically recover for the next day when you're sleeping. You wake up with more mental agility, less brain fog if you sleep better. So sleep is probably the most important thing that you can possibly focus on, and we probably say prioritize that first.
And actually, all the steps we've just spoken about from part 1 down to part 4, these come into these last 2 points: stress management and time management. If you knuckle down the last points that we've just spoken about, all from part 1 to now where we are now, you will realize your stress will go down naturally without stress management tactics. We spoke about stress management tactics on another podcast, so check that out for those, and time management as well. But just a couple: stress management, ace your sleep, make sure you're sitting and giving some time for yourself, clock off and just have some, downtime. And then for time management, make sure you're planning. Plan things out, know what you're doing throughout the day, give yourself time. So like, for example, if I need to go somewhere, I give myself half an hour. That's the easiest ways I can say to sort those out.
Nailed it. Perfect, mate. That's the habits. Right. So action plan, where to start? So this is based on someone, yourself, that if you want to lose some body fat, tone up, build some strength, and obviously build your energy levels, here's what you got to do. So first of all, you got to strength train 3 times a week, at least. Okay. Now we recommend 3 times a week. You can train 5 times a week if you've got the time and you feel like you're motivated to do that. Okay.
Point number 2, make sure you're in a calorie deficit if you're wanting to lose body fat. If you're wanting to gain muscle, then make sure you're in a surplus. That can be anywhere from 500 to 250 calories either side of it, either in a surplus or in a deficit.
Good. And then obviously next one is hitting the protein. We don't care about the carbs and fats too much, but make sure you hit your protein. Set yourself a minimum. It doesn't have to be the higher end, it can be the lower end, but make sure you hit it consistently. Okay, your carbs and fats are going to do this every single day, but your protein wants to be consistent.
What I will say is, adding on to that, make sure you are staying active per day. We've just spoken about daily activity. Make sure you're getting over 5k steps a day, okay? On average, the average person gets 3k a day, which is mad nowadays. Yeah. Make sure you're getting over 5k because it keeps your activity nice and down that baseline. You can get anything over that and you're absolutely fine.
And then lastly, if you nail all those points, make sure you're getting consistent 7 to 9 hours per sleep per night. Every single day. Try not to fail this even on one day, because you will start to feel the effects of lack of sleep. Okay?
Now, some people may be watching this right now and they may be sitting there thinking, oh my God, this is overwhelming. Like, there's a lot going on here. And that is why we say to get a coach. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to be ourselves, but we put ourselves into the market as some of the best coaches on the market, over 15 years of experience. We've been here for a while. Yeah. And the thing is, we actually have an offer running at the minute on our group coaching, which can save you a bit of money because it's going to get you 1 month completely free. So for access to our group coaching for 3 months, it's £97 up front, and that's it. You're done, you pay for. But if you want to do it on a more of a kind of monthly rolling, you can do it for $49.99. So if you want to get access to that, you need to get in touch with us as soon as possible. We have limited spaces in the app. Come talk to us. You get a 12-week program, and we can give you all the details as well for everything else you'll get. There'll be full accountability. So everything
that we said in the action plan today, you're going to get access to all of that. Yep. Basically, you're going to have a rundown of exactly what you've got to do. In the app, you've got a training program with videos for each exercise you have to do. You have nutrition recipes to follow. You have a nutrition plan to follow. You have tracking software. Everything that we talked about, you've got access to.
And the thing is, it's going to take that away from you. So we're going to do that job for you. It's what you're paying for. It's what we're experts in. It's what we do. So make sure, just come to us. You can message Nick, message myself, or fill out the little form that we've got. It takes all of 30 seconds to fill out, and we can have a chat with you guys and move you forward. So 2024 will not be as overwhelming as you think it is. We can do it all for you. It's great.
Perfect. So guys, we really hope that this action plan has helped you to kind of solidify what you should be doing to get the best body shape possible in 2024. As I said, we do have a service, but we're also here to help. So if you've got any questions, you can find us on Instagram at coach.dan.king.
That's it.
And Get Fit by Nick, and we'll help you with any problems that you have.
Hell yeah. Have a cracking day, guys, and we'll catch you later.
Ciao, ciao.